Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on Toned In Entertainment, where we love pop culture. Today, it's time to continue on with my comic book discussion of the Undertaker comic book series. Now, this is issue number 3, and it's called the Darke Remembrance. Now, issue number 3 is going to open up with the Undertaker in a free fall as he's fallen some 100 feet out the window of the Tricorp building. After the Undertaker crash lands to the ground, one of the Embalmers demons says it's time for them to now set up a trap for Paul Bearer. But before the Embalmer can get to the window to check on his fallen foe, in traditional Undertaker fashion, he sits back up, showing that even a fiery fall of 100 feet will not stop the dead man. Now, when the Embalmer finally makes his way to look out the window, all that's left is a snow outline of the Undertaker's body. And while the Embalmer's demonic goons are surprised, the Embalmer isn't, as he says that the Undertaker didn't let the Wheel of Souls break him, nor would he let this fall. It will take more, much more. Now we're going to catch up with Paul Bearer, who's residing at the Sacred Memories Funeral Home, which is described as a place where souls and bodies are put to their final rest. Or at least that's what the brochure says. Inside, Paul Bearer is talking to a demonic compadre named Embalmer, and he's focused on finding the other 2 books to go with his book of death, that he must possess them to gain the absolute power that he believes he deserves. And that if he can join all 3 books together, he will then wield enough power to stop both the Embalmer and the Undertaker. Now, in order to do this, he has enlisted the services of a mysterious figure who stands in the shadows, who promises that when he gets all 3 books, that this mysterious figure will be rewarded, as Paul Bearer plans on executing Armageddon as he's focused on reshaping the universe in his own image. Now, even though the Undertaker is a very powerful entity, the beating that he took at the hands of the Embalmer has forced him to try to get some rest and rejuvenation, and at what better place than a graveyard. Now, over the next several pages, we will get some deep insight as to how the feud between the Taker and the Embalmer has waged on for centuries. As the Undertaker says, "My hate burns. I let it consume me. I let it cloud my judgment. The price I paid for that unchecked rage was costly, but worth it in the long run. For now, my enemy knows final judgment is near. And with final judgment comes misery and torment, pain and suffering that is eternal. And I shall be the one that deals out the endless holocaust of misery. And only I, for I am the Undertaker. By absorbing a blast of the Embalmer's tainted hellfire, my unearthly tissue and muscle must be regenerated. Only in the place of the dead may I regain lost power and energy. Here I am able to reap the powers of the Dark Ministry and prepare myself for battle with the transgressors of Stygian. It was long ago, in my first form, that my rule over Stygian was attacked. Then all 3 books of the dead were in their proper place, and my rule of Hell's prison was clear. It was then when the first of the transgressors breached my kingdom. He came from the medieval times of Earth. He was the powerful druid of the time, practicing in the dark arts and taking them to unseen heights. He was known as Augustus, the Dark One. It was during his latest raid of another rival druid's domain that he found the notes of the Death Scribe. His black heart was intoxicated with the readings. The Dark One committed to the readings to breach the domain of Stygian. He craved the power that the books of death would bring him. When he arrived through the portal of death to the door of Stygian, he had reached an orgasmic high that would forever run through his blood. He vowed that day to conquer all realms and make all those that dwelled in each his slaves for eternity. Using the portal of death, Augustus was able to snatch and enlist newly arrived dark souls into his army of rebellion. With them, he began his assault on Stygian. This was the beginning of the 400-year-old war, a time when the balance of death was off kilter, when the fabric of all evil was ripped and chaos ruled in hell. All hell shook during this confrontation of pure evil. Our battle raged on into the holy keep of the books of the dead. The Dark One was crafty and his mind full of venom. Bringing our war to the keep was not one of chance. Augustus the Dark One revealed an ancient scroll with the incantation to reverse the portal of death. With that and a spell of darkness that he conjured from his druid practice, he was able to use the portal against me and to remove the books from their place. I was being sucked into the portal and engulfed into an abyss so black, so deep, I was powerless to deny the portal of its grasp. I did manage to take a volume of the books with me. Another volume was sent hurtling into the portal, its destiny unknown at that time. The last book of death found itself in the possession of Augustus. The rule of Stygian would forever be changed. For centuries after that, Augustus the Dark One would travel back and forth from Stygian to Earth, causing havoc and misery. He would not rule either plane, but he did his best to bring death and chaos to both. For many centuries, the Dark One would send his dark souls to Earth, wearing the skin of humans to spread madness and death, all for his amusement. He was taking my pleasure, my place, my destiny. During those centuries in the Black Abyss, I was floating and not in control of my fate. Then a small time after that midpoint of this current century, I was brought back. I was not the same. My spirit lay dormant, encased in the body of a young boy. I was that boy. I had a mortal family, mother, father, a young brother. I felt a strange warmth during that short period, one that comes back to me now and then. Even now, my memory of the day of fire is muddled, a feeling that now sickens me. I remember the can of gasoline, my younger brother running, screaming into the house for my parents. Then I felt a heavy touch. I had stopped shaking. All I knew before I was gone was that the Embalmer had found me. He took me away from the only spark of light that I had ever known. My parents, my house, my brother, all taken from me. I remember the gasoline, the flames, the screaming. I remember the moments before the fire and those after. But the thoughts during the act have always been a black haze. Augustus the Dark One, the Embalmer Augustus Slayer, by whatever name he is known, found me, took me, enslaved me to the Wheel of Souls. The great grinding wheel that takes the incoming souls and grinds them into the pit of darkness of eternal pain and suffering. But it was I that suffered the most. He had me there to be placed under his watchful eye, to make sure that I never came back as told in the Book of Death to end the chaos of Stygian. For years I turned the wheel. All the light from my boyhood was gone. Only hate and rage stoked my internal fires. Then the day came, like a clock that finally rang. The hour was at hand. It was time for my return. I was strong. I was fueled with hate. I was ready to reclaim my post and dispel the transgressors. And from here on out is where the beatings will stop as the Undertaker breaks the chains that he's been confined to. As the Undertaker goes on to say, no longer would I be captive. Even if it took an eternity, which I have, I would once again construct my ministry of darkness to the rightful level of rulership. I will rip all the fires from my throne of darkness. I will once again possess the books of the dead. I will end the chaos of Stygian at last. Then I will unleash my ministry of darkness upon the whole universe. Then all will know the rage of the Undertaker forever. The battleground between Stygian and Earth will soon merge. I will regain everything that is mine and take anything else that I desire. I will not comfort the Embalmer and pallbearer with the silence of death. I will bring them eternal pain and suffering. They will be meat for my feast of darkness. For it is time, so it is written, so it shall be. So says the Undertaker. Now while the Undertaker is getting his strength up, he's getting ready to get up and running. Well, we're going to catch up with Mankind, who's having a very in-depth conversation with Mr. Sacco. Where Mankind is gonna ask Mr. Sacco, they don't believe us. They never do. We've seen them. They just walk around like it was a weekend at the mall, with their tails dragging and those horns on their heads. Kane sees them too, but he won't say anything. He doesn't want them to know. Oh yeah, you're right. Kane never says anything. Sorry, Mr. Sacco, I forgot. Yes, and the Undertaker knows that he won't admit it either. He's always a little grumpy. Yeah, I don't think he gets enough sleep either, Mr. Sacco. I don't want to be grumpy like the Undertaker, Mr. Sacco. Let's take a nap. What do you say? Now the Undertaker has got his strength up and he's ready to go out on the hunt, but waiting down here in the shadows is his brother, Kane. But the only info we're gonna get here is that in the next issue, Kane must first save the Undertaker in order to destroy him. Alright guys, well that's going to wrap up my comic book discussion for issue number 3 of the Undertaker comic book series. I know there was a lot of information given out in this particular issue, but it's pretty pertinent to how the whole story between the Undertaker and the Embalmer has evolved over the past 400 years. Now guys, if you like these comic book discussions, well, I've got issue number 4 called Family Values, and I am working on my discussion for that comic book coming soon here to Toned In Entertainment. So guys, if you like videos like this, make sure you subscribe to the channel for those future videos.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.